Welcome to the Investor Fuel Real Estate Investing Show, where I interview the nation's top real estate entrepreneurs, industry leaders, and other amazing entrepreneurs to help educate and inspire you to take your business and your life to the next level. My goal is to add tremendous value to you during every single episode of this show. If you get value, I'd love it if you subscribe on your favorite podcast player, subscribe on YouTube, and my very favorite, please share this with your community so we can impact even more entrepreneurs. Let's start today's show. Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Today I'm here with my friend Kathy Fettke. She's been on the show many times over the years. Of course, it used to be the Flip Nerd Show, and we've been friends for a long time now. She really is an authority in the real estate space and has a ton of experience, and she has her ear to the ground, probably like few other people right now. And we're going to be talking about what's going on with the market in 2025, kind of what's the housing forecast and where are the current opportunities at. And I'm sure there'll be a lot more that she's able to share with us. So Kathy, always great to see you. Welcome here.
Thank you so much for having me back.
Yeah. It's been, you and I talked about it a little bit up front, but you were on the podcast with me a couple times before. The first time was almost 11 years ago. It's kind of hard to believe.
Wow.
Yeah.
I've known you a long time and I feel very
And
old in this industry.
Neither one of us have aged a day, so it's really cool.
Oh, so kind.
Yeah. Well, hey, why don't you tell us, I think a lot of folks know who you are. You've really been a leader in the industry. And but maybe for those that don't know you yet, tell us a little bit more about you and your background.
Yeah, well, my background is in broadcasting. I worked in the newsrooms of ABC7, Fox, this was back when news was just news. You weren't allowed to have any slant at all. You get fired for that. So very different times, CNN and so forth. Then I, married Rich Fettke, had 2 children, dream life, bought a big house, did all the things, even invested in, we had financial planners telling us what to do with our money. And it was in 2002 that Rich noticed a freckle on his forehead. He's a redhead, so freckles, are abundant. But he noticed this one and had it checked out. It turned out to be melanoma. And this is over, 23 years ago. And at that time, it was just a death sentence, basically. If you didn't catch melanoma, skin cancer in time, it spread very quickly. So the doctor said, basically looked at Rich and said, you've probably got 6 months at best. Mm-hmm. And that was a shocker. We were, and just at the, top of our game. He was a business coach, coaching, business owners all over the world. Actually, he had come out with a best-selling book from Simon & Schuster called Extreme Success. Everything was perfect until it wasn't. And I just refused to believe it. And I also had no idea how I would take over the family and the finances and the household, all of it, if the doctor was right. I had been a stay-at-home mom for a few years because of our 2 young children. And for a lot of women, it's like, what do you do? How do you get back into the workplace? When you've been at home, you get out. How do I say it? It's hard the world changes very quickly, Yeah. So it's like, who's going to hire me and for what? But I still had a radio show. And again, this is pre-podcast, very new in technology back then. And I still had a radio show in San Francisco I would do on Saturdays. And I just thought, you know what? I am going to find out how to make real money, things that I've only heard of, like passive income. What's that? I've heard that you could have this mailbox money. What does that even mean? I didn't know anyone who had that. So I just turned my radio show, which had been kind of newsy, just sort of current event type show, and changed it to wealth building. And again, this is before podcasts. The only way you could really learn the secrets of the wealthy real estate investor was through those, RIA groups, back of the room sales. You had to spend like $10,000 or $20,000 to get a CD on how to build wealth in real estate, So it was hard to get the information back then. And I just opened up the door to it. Like I invited millionaires onto the show to tell us what they were doing and how they were doing it. And everything changed for me. My mindset, my ability to see opportunity. It's hard to see opportunity if you don't know what to look for, right? And all of a sudden, when you do know what to look for, it's everywhere. So it changed my mindset, my beliefs, and apparently many people who listened. And it grew, my audience grew. Then Rich just said, I think it was by then, it was 2005. And he's like, oh, look, there's this new thing called a podcast. You can upload your radio show. And I did. And suddenly I had listeners in 27 countries instead of just San Francisco and all over the
Yeah.
country. That's when Real Wealth was born, our company where we help people from all over the world, but also all over America, build wealth through real estate, particularly buy and hold, for
Yeah.
passive income.
Right. And so when did you start your podcast again? You just said it, but say it one more time.
Oh, I think the day that podcast came out, because, Rich had the little iPod back then, those little,
Yeah.
100 songs or 1,000 songs in your pocket.
Right.
That was kind of the big deal. And he just got this little message saying, oh, you can upload, your own content. And he was like,
Yep.
okay. And he just took my show. I don't think it was called the Real Wealth Show. I think it was called The Edge or something back then. And he
Yeah.
just uploaded it, and I was one of the first. So
Yeah.
it just had
do
a
you remember
big
roughly
reach.
what year that was?
2005, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's amazing because I remember I've said this several times. I think even in 2012, by the way, so several years after you, was like the number 6 or number 7 real estate podcast. Like
Yeah.
there was Matt Theriault, Joe McCall, Jason Hartman, of course. I think Jason Hartman even had several back then,
Yeah.
and you and a few others. And of course, now there's a ton of them, right? And
There's so
so,
much
yeah,
competition now, but yeah, we were the top 10 forever, right?
yeah,
For a long
yeah,
time
yeah,
until
yeah.
everybody had a podcast.
Yeah. Maybe you can share some thoughts on, and by the way, your husband's doing well.
Oh, that's the part of the story I always forget. The doctor was wrong. Rich is healthy today.
For those that
He
don't
has
know, I said, well, you better tell us about that part.
yeah,
Yeah.
like, how did this? Yes, I'm the luckiest woman. He had it cut out, and after further testing, they thought it had spread to his liver, and they were wrong. So
Yeah.
he is healthy today, but every year, I mean, he's got chunks cut out all the time. Just last week,
Yeah.
he's got these big biceps, and they had to cut into it. He's got all these scars, but he loves it. Every time he sees a scar, he's like, "Well, they saved my life."
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe just share a few thoughts on, because a lot of people face adversity, right? I mean, it'd be easy. It's easy for some people to say, woe is me. This happened. I better just get comfortable with where I'm at. You talk a lot about helping people build wealth and, build your legacy and impact other people and things like that. How do you balance those things I'm sure that more than ever, you guys value the sanctity of life, right? Just how important that is. But also still keep pushing forward to improve your life and the lives of other people around you. How do you balance those things? Sometimes people just say, let me just go put myself in a corner and just deal with my situation and turn the rest of the world off. Like, how do you balance those things?
Well, Rich and I actually met in a personal growth seminar, and we learned a lot. That also changed. That was so powerful for me to understand the power of my thoughts, the power of my words, and
Mhm.
truly to think is to create. To what we think. If you think you can, you're right, and if you think you cannot, you're also right. So we've got to be very, very careful about the things that we say and the things that we think, because it
Yeah.
will manifest. And that's why people do dream boards, put pictures of your dreams up on the wall. I have always sat with my kids and said, on the day before school would start, and we would role play and pretend it was the last day of school. And I would say, how was your year? And who did you meet? And how were your grades? And we would act as if it had already happened so that they could visualize. Athletes. I was an athlete for many years. I was an ice skater, and most athletes will visualize their perfect routine. I mean, in my case, it was a routine, but perfect performance in their mind. If you cannot see it in your mind, you will not achieve it. Whatever
Yeah.
you do see in your mind, you will achieve it. So if you see yourself as a failure, if you see yourself as overwhelmed, if you see the world as a difficult place, all of that will be true for you. So
Mhm.
building a muscle in your brain is probably the most important thing, the muscle of intention, of seeing it. I mean, even when I started the Real Wealth Show, I was broke, and I had poverty mindset because I didn't know anyone who came from money. My dad was a dentist, and it's not like I didn't grow up in a trailer, but
Right.
but he had 5 kids, and we live in the San Francisco Bay Area. So I was the youngest. I always got the hand-me-downs. We never had extra money. Never had nice cars. Like I didn't know anyone wealthy. So I
Yeah.
couldn't picture myself wealthy. Also, my family was very, very strong born again Christian. So there was kind of this almost like it's not godly to be wealthy. And so any thoughts like that that run you will run you. I mean, that's the bottom line. And if you,
Yeah.
until you can see a difference. And when I would try to visualize myself wealthy, I would reject that concept because it was like, oh, this isn't good. This God would frown upon this, or people will hate me for being wealthy, or they'll only like me because I'm wealthy, or whatever these thoughts are. I
Yeah.
had to work through them one by one until I could actually be wealthy. And the biggest turning point for me was becoming friends with wealthy people through my journey of having this radio show. I would get invited to speak at different investor groups and meet super successful investors and find out, whoa, these are generous people. These are good people. These are people I want to be like. And it was only till then I could see my future differently.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I recently did a show with a peak performance kind of hypnotherapist, and we talked about a lot of these things about just the word, some of the same things you said, the words you use instead of saying, "I hope I don't fail." You know,
I'll succeed.
the
Yeah.
mind hears fail, and
Yeah.
say like, "I
Yep.
am going to be successful," and yeah, things like that. Yeah, we have a lot of us have mental hangups on success and what that looks like that just kind of limit our own performance because we're just asking ourselves the wrong questions or feeding ourselves the wrong
The
words, right?
wrong, hanging around the wrong people who are reinforcing those thoughts. They're finding some studies that kids can't even hear the word don't. I don't know how true this is, but if you say don't eat that, they hear eat that. So, if you don't want your kids to eat something, you say, eat this. Let's put this away and eat this. This is good. And use only positive reinforcement type words of like what you want them to do versus what you don't want them to do. So it's
Yeah,
possible that we as adults also don't hear the don't. And so it's like, don't fail, you hear fail.
that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting. I have a 17-year-old son. He generally does the opposite of what we say, so there's must be some truth there somewhere.
No, they're just 17. That's just, I think we're wired to, well, it was so
Yeah.
funny. I mean, again, I'll be quick on this, but I knew my kids would rebel against anything I would say. So I would say things like, don't go to college. It's total waste of time, which some people do believe. And they were like, oh, mom, I'm going to go to college. Okay, well, whatever. And then like, you know what? I need babies. I need grandbabies. Hurry up and give me some grandbabies. Ew, no, mom, I'm never going to have a boyfriend. Okay. You know?
Some
Anyway,
reverse
reverse
psychology.
psychology.
That's funny. So let's talk about what do you think's going on in the market? Boy, what a interesting time to
Yeah.
be alive, I guess, right? But tell us a little bit about your insights on what's going on in the overall economy and just the kind of the real estate market.
Well, it's in complete upheaval. I think it would be the best way to say it. But it's not the first time and it won't be the last time. You and I have been around a long time. We've been through a lot of cycles. We've been through a lot of confusion. I mean, when I was in high school, the president was shot, Ronald Reagan. That was scary. There, we were dealing with a superpower, Russia, trying to, we had the arms race going on. We've had oil crises. We went through COVID. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
look back and think of all the times that America has been in crisis. And you can put your focus there, like we just talked about, all the things that are going wrong. Or you could say, what's the opportunity here? And what's the opportunity during crisis? And the fact of the matter is there always is.
Hmm.
When people are afraid, I think Warren Buffett's famous for saying that. That's the time to go. That's go time. When
Yeah.
when the Fed said they were going to start raising rates in early 2022, I think it was, people freaked out. There were headlines about all the foreclosures that were coming, and that all always negative news, negative news, negative news. I was in the news business. The only way you get people's attention is by having negative news.
Hmm.
So uh, I immediately was like, yay, everybody's scared. I'm going to start a fund. And I started a single family rental fund right when the market had froze. There was nobody buying, nobody selling. We had wholesalers who usually had 90 people, trying to go after one property. They were coming to us and they were cutting the price in half, because there was nobody else out there because of the fear. And then we built this amazing fund actually in North Dallas, near Sherman, Texas, where there's all the new chip manufacturing coming in. We were getting homes for 50 grand, just a couple of years ago. They've tripled, maybe more since then. So again, look for the data, the facts, ignore the headlines, let other people freak out about that so that you can find the opportunity.
Yeah, there's always opportunity in adversity. I think that's what some of the best entrepreneurs do is they look for when everybody else is running away, you run in, right?
You run in. So today, there's a lot of turmoil for sure. Trump he got elected based on it's no surprise, right? He talked about tariffs a lot, but somehow the world was surprised by it. He did do it all at once and very fast and furious, and it has freaked out, a lot of people. So because of that fear of change, and again, every new president that comes in, that's their whole platform is change. It scares people. So are we
Yeah,
going to get through it? Of course we are. Should you read all the headlines and listen to TV all day long? Only if you want to be depressed. Like what is that
right.
going to do for you? I know lots of people. I'm in California, and there's a lot of people, of course, who are pretty angry about what's going on, and even family members. And it's like, okay, and how are you changing things by being angry? I get it. I get it. I mean, I've been angry about lots of things, but your job was to vote, or you could start a podcast and be like, what are you going to do about it?
Right.
So, besides just ruin your life by being angry,
Yeah.
So
Yep.
I just put my head down and focus on opportunity and know that we always get through it. We are
Yeah.
a country of checks and balances. So, Trump got checked, basically, and we're getting back to balance. When he announced the tariffs, the bond market sent a very strong message. This was just last week. And mortgage rates are very much tied to the bond market. When
Hmm.
investors come, sorry, that just made a weird noise. Do I sound okay? Okay.
You're good. Yeah.
Okay. Um, when investors are fearful, they tend to buy bonds, and that's from all over the world. They'll buy U.S. bonds because of a flight to safety. And when they do that, they're also buying mortgage-backed securities. So usually during scary times, during any kind of global transition like this, investors seek bonds, and then that also, because there's so many buying, then we see mortgage rates come down.
Hmm.
When investors sell bonds, it's usually because they're getting into the stock market. It's usually because they want a better return. Bonds don't have a great return. They want to get in the stock market because things are growing. Well, when Trump announced the tariffs, all of a sudden, just investors from all over the world started selling off their bonds. They didn't like it. They didn't see America as a flight to safety like they normally would, or they were just mad. Who knows? Whatever the reason, there was a sell-off of bonds, and that sent our interest rates up. Trump got the message loud and clear, and that's when he put the 90-day pause on
Yeah.
the tariffs, and so that's kind of what's going on with interest rates. So I just want people to know there are checks and balances in this world and in our country, and there always have been, and we should be very proud of that. That
Mm.
we can try something and then we get very quickly a response. So,
Yep.
so the bottom line is that um, rates kind of went down, then they went up. They're kind of coming on back down again. They're all over the place. But
Yeah.
how does that affect you as an investor? It might affect you that you have to get a better deal. If we're going to see interest rates go up, well, then you've got to get a better deal. That's negotiating power. Right now, we are looking at some land for storage. We're going to build a storage unit. And we are, kind of coming back to the seller saying, we can't pay what you're asking because of tariffs. Tariffs are
Hmm.
going to make this construction more expensive for us, most likely. We need to put that in the number. We need a $400,000 discount on the land. And they agreed. So, it's just, again, you just got to look at the data, say, well, this is here. How do I use it to my benefit? How do I still move forward wisely, but, use the fear to my benefit?
Yeah. And I think the key is to work with, there's obviously individual investors out there. I have hundreds of them in Investor Fuel, and we together are finding ways to navigate around turmoil, right? You have your network and you're doing the
Yep.
same thing. And you obviously are a provider with your fund and your turnkey business and things like that. People just need to work with people that have been through a few cycles before and have been around for a long time. And it's like, if these things kind of scare you, just make sure you're working with and you're around people that know more than you, because they'll know how to navigate these waters and are opportunists. Like, we're always like, hey, there's still opportunity in this space. You just pivot and find ways to uncover those opportunities that maybe are short lived. Like, there'll be something else next year, or who knows where we'll be in a year from now, but we're constantly just looking for ways to kind of navigate those waters and benefit ourselves and those around us, right?
I can't emphasize the importance of that enough, of being
Yeah.
around people who've been through it. In 2008, when, wow, Lehman Brothers crashed, it looked like the US economy was literally just like going to dissipate. It was a
Yeah.
really scary time. Even Congress was like, oh my, our financial world is literally crumbling.
Yeah.
And I had a 40-year veteran developer. This is when I started syndicating. Listen to my show. He gave me a call and said, this is the greatest opportunity of a lifetime. And the rest of us are like, what do you mean? The world is falling apart. And he was like, I've never seen so many deals. And can you raise money? Can we syndicate this? I can buy land for 10 cents on the dollar.
Mm.
And his calmness, because he was, in his 70s and he'd been through so many crises. He'd be there all the
Right.
time. It's just the
Yeah.
way the world works. He wasn't scared. He could only see opportunity.
Yeah.
And, we ended up, that's how I started syndicating. We got ridiculous deals back then.
Yeah. Yeah. And you've probably heard this before, but I, my wife and I started investing in 2008,
Oh
and it
boy.
wasn't because we predicted the market. It was just coincidental. We just had left our jobs, and, I got fired from my job, but, we're at that point in our lives where it's like, we need to bet on ourselves and jump in. That was where the entrepreneurial bug that we'd had for all these years, or really me, took off. And I just didn't have, for folks that had been around a while, there were a lot of people that were fearful because they hadn't been through it before. For me, I was just benefiting from being naive. Like, we didn't know any better, and it turned out to be the greatest time to get started, certainly in my lifetime, and
Yeah.
we ended up flip in our very first year, while most investors were on the sidelines or out of business or whatever. We flipped 65 houses without having any prior experience, like, whatsoever.
Oh
And
my goodness.
but
That's
it's
amazing.
because there was less competition. We
Yeah.
found a way to get capital when a lot of people couldn't, and we were just off to the races. But some of it is that we just had those blinders on, that we weren't paying attention to the world out there, because we were so consumed with focus on building something in front of us here, because we were just at a stage in our lives where, like, we had to make this work, and we did, and
Yeah.
we're off to the races. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. When you are dealing with uncertainty, or like, in my case, a crisis, and in your case, also a
Yeah.
crisis, right? If you lose your job,
Yeah. Yeah.
that is such an amazing time to be motivated. You
Yeah.
know, once you get
Exactly. You said
comfortable,
early on, like, just focus on what you can control. Like, if you can't
yeah,
control it, just turn it off. Like, it's not doing
yeah,
you any good to just wallow in fear of something that you can't even control.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really doing nobody any good. Just stop watching
Yeah.
TV.
Yeah. Yeah. And I find myself sometimes watching the news and I'm like, "Ah, this is the same thing over and over again, just
It's
from
just so
one."
depressing. Just notice how you
Yeah.
feel. It's like this is not
Yeah.
making me feel better. And
So
you're
let's
right.
talk a little bit about your real wealth network and what you do. And I think both of us, as we're both investors, we also both find ways to collaborate with people. I think it makes our lives better and more fulfilling when you can kind of serve other people and bring other people along with you. And I found for me, it gives me a lot of accountability because once you get to a certain point to where you're kind of comfortable, like I'm good at letting myself down, but I'll like never let anybody else down if I can help it, right? And so
Mhm.
I think as an entrepreneur, it helps me continue to level up because I'm worried about, letting other people down or worried about their success, right? And so, and I know you have a lot of those same, beliefs as well, but just talk a little bit about the real wealth network.
Well, Mike, that uh, moral standing that you have is actually pretty rare. I'm sure in your group it's not as rare, but when I started trying to find investment property outside of California, because I just couldn't make the numbers work. So I had to learn how to invest out of state. And I actually had Robert Kiyosaki on the Real Wealth Show, and this was 2005 again. And he was talking about how Texas was growing. It was the fastest growing state in the country, job wise and population wise, and yet the property values were below the national average. So he's like, you're just not going to find better cash flow anywhere, plus future appreciation. So I
Mhm.
believed him, but I didn't have a network. I didn't know what to do. So I just bought a ticket and went to Dallas and met with some agents. And I learned really quickly that I couldn't trust just a random real estate agent.
Mhm.
They took me to a $400,000 neighborhood in 2005. Okay. So
Yeah.
thinking, oh, Californians love this neighborhood. And that may be true, but not for investment. It was
Right.
like she either just didn't know or was just trying to get a really nice commission
Yeah.
versus taking me to the right neighborhood that would be $100,000 property.
Yeah.
So I just thought, well, gosh, who am I going to be able to trust? And over the years, I've made a lot of mistakes trusting the wrong people. And part of that is just kind of not knowing how to do my due diligence back then in the beginning. So I like to explain to people that imagine if, like, I took the family to Costa Rica and I forgot to look at the exchange rate. So I was like, oh, I just had some money in my pocket and we went to buy some lunch and I gave the money and they gave me the change and we walked out and I heard them laughing. And I thought, oh my gosh, I just got ripped off, but I don't even know how I got ripped off. I don't know how much money I gave them or how much I got back. And that was just a lack of doing my due diligence, right? So it's a lot harder to get ripped off if you know. If I knew the money I had, I'd be like, wait, 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 no, this would cost this much. And you get it. So in the beginning, I didn't know how to underwrite a deal. I didn't know the cost of renovation. I didn't know which neighborhoods to stay out of and which ones were growing and where the jobs were going. I learned pretty quickly after that first meeting in Dallas that I need to find a team that I can trust, and that's probably a property manager. Not always, because this was many years ago, and property management
Mhm.
wasn't very good back then. It's still really hard, but there
Yeah.
weren't the systems and the technology and the support that a lot of property management companies have today. They didn't even have the software back then. So, but I did learn, okay, these are real investors. They're going to take me to the right neighborhoods. They're going to manage my property. They don't want to sell me a crappy property because they're going to have to manage it. That's not always true. There's some bad property managers. But I learned the importance of a team. And then when I came back to San Francisco and talked about all these properties I bought and how well they were performing and the amazing team I had put together, my phones rang off the hook. Can you give me the phone numbers? Who did you use? What property manager? That's when Real Wealth was born. It's like, how do I help other people by providing them with the resources and the referrals to reputable companies? And
Yeah.
it's hard to do. And so that's what we still do today. We'll find a team that's been flipping properties and say, hey, can you flip these properties to our investors? We want to make sure that your renovation meets our standards. We have really strict standards, or a brand new property is great too. And take care of our California investors who are kind of forced to be passive. They would love to do business in their own backyard, but they can't. So basically our members at Real Wealth are from the coasts, the expensive coasts, either west or east. A lot of New Yorkers, a lot of San Francisco and LA people who just cannot do business in their own backyard. And then, like I said, when my podcast took off, then we had people from all over the world also who were kind of forced to be passive. They don't live here. So that's what we do. We build teams in different growth areas and help people build their passive rental portfolios.
That's great. So, Kathy, if folks want to learn more about you or Real Wealth Network or connect in any way, where can they go?
realwealth.com. It's free to join. You could speak with one of our investment counselors there. They are very experienced. They have bought through our network of providers. And then the Real Wealth Show is my podcast.
Yeah, awesome. We'll add links down below for that. So always great to see you.
So good to see you.
Yeah, hopefully I see you again soon, one way or another. Our paths are due to cross here.
I hope so.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks for sharing your insights on where the market's at as well. So everybody, hope you got some good value from today. Kathy is a legend and an amazing person. So I definitely recommend you follow along with what she's doing. And also, I think one of the lessons here is we can't control interest rates. We can't control what's going on in the economy. You can control your own economy, right? And the goal is not to just sit on the sidelines and wait for it to pass, because folks like Kathy and myself have been doing this long enough. We know that by the time most folks are ready to kind of jump back in because they think the market is stable, there's a lot of opportunities that you lost out on in the process, because adversity always creates opportunities as well. So make sure that you're not hanging up your hat for right now. If you're listening to this podcast, you're probably not, but just make sure that whenever there's adversity, there's plenty of opportunity there as well. And that's really where the wealth is built, when everybody else is kind of afraid or sitting on the sidelines and you're not. So appreciate you all for joining us today. We'll see you on the next show.
Thanks for joining us for today's show. You can learn more about the amazing benefits of the Investor Fuel Mastermind community, including surrounding yourself with hundreds of other rock stars, 100% financing on your deals, and members-only discounts from vendors you're likely already using that, as a member of Investor Fuel, will save you more than the cost of your membership. Visit investorfuel.com to learn more. You can also check out the show's notes for access to free resources, how to get access to world-class lead generation, and even how to work with me directly one-on-one. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another episode. See you on the next show.